I love you.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, aka The Shy Kid, and you're listening to an Everything Chicago sports related podcast. We are back with some breaking news, but not so much breaking news. It's interesting. It's an interesting conversation that we're going to be having today because the Chicago Bulls have officially started picking up steam on the availability of Zach Lavine. Now, obviously, these conversations have been going on since the beginning of the season. You know, we've had this time and time again discussing whether the Bulls are better with or without Zach Lavine, and there's a lot of record to show that we're better without him, but there's also a record to show that we're better with him. So there's so many different ways we can go about this episode, so many different conversations, but today we're just going to hit you guys with the facts. Now, earlier today, it was reported that the Chicago Bulls are in trade talks, potentially with the Detroit Pistons. Monty Williams, obviously being the head coach of this organization, they see where they want to go in the foreseeable future. Monty Williams, obviously being one of those guys that was so pivotal to that Phoenix Suns team that went to the finals back in 2021. Without him, you can make conversations say that, hey, maybe they don't go as far as they go. But regardless of that fact, regardless of that conversation, today we're having a real conversation about what the Chicago Bulls could potentially get in return for somebody like Zach Lavine. Now, it was reported today from The Athletic, from, I believe, James Edwards III from The Athletic today reported that the Pistons currently have, quote, no interest in trading Cade Cunningham, Azure Thompson, Jaden Ivey, or Jalen Duren. But with that, in the immediate future, they could potentially see the Bulls making a move for a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic and somebody else to make something work. Now, what's interesting about this one right here, I think when you look at the trade, you have to take into consideration what else has been going on throughout the league. Terry Rozier was just traded for a first-round pick. You have to take that into consideration that other teams are out here making moves, and now the trade value of a first-round pick just goes down by $1 million because Terry Rozier, who, yes, is averaging 23 points per game this year, is not a franchise caliber player. So if you were to tell me who would you want, Zach Lavine or Terry Rozier, 10 times out of 10, you have to go with Zach Lavine. Now, the price next to his name might be a lot more expensive, but the conversation at the end of the day remains the same, that Zach Lavine is at least worth one first-round pick. I would at least say that. Maybe it's protected, maybe it's not. Who knows? But I will say this. Here's where I'm currently at as it pertains to Zach Lavine and the potential trade talks with the Detroit Pistons. If you're a Bulls fan and you're looking for Jaden Ivey or Cade Cunningham or even Jalen Duren, I think you're in the wrong place. I think that's the wrong mindset. What I'm looking at right now, if I'm the Chicago Bulls organization and what I think the Bulls are going to get in return for Zach Lavine, you have to look at what the Philadelphia 76ers got for James Harden. They didn't get multiple first-round picks. They didn't get young, promising players. They got expiring deals to fill up a max slot going into 2025. Or even at the trade deadline this year to flip those assets to get into a max player. You know, that's definitely where I'm at with Zach Lavine right now. Two guys that I think the Chicago Bulls would potentially acquire. Joe Harris, who's on an expiring deal. He's being paid $19 million this year. And then obviously Bojan Bogdanovic, who will be a free agent after the 2025 season. He's due $20 million this year and about $20-something million next year. With that being said, you have to have a real conversation about what Zach Lavine's currently worth. Zach Lavine's contract up until 2027 will continue to rise up until $48.5 million, around $49 million. Right now it's at 40. You can get Bojan Bogdanovic and Joe Harris today and make those salaries pretty much work. Now, you can throw in a first-round pick on top of that, and at the end of the season, obviously Joe Harris, boom, he's out of here. And then you can figure out what you want to do with Bojan. You can trade Bojan at the deadline or just trade him or cut him at the end of the season, whatever you want to do, to fill up a slot for a max contract. That's where you have to go with it. I know as fans, we want to sit up here and say, get Cade Cunningham, get Jaden Ivey, get another all-star in return, get a Tyrese Maxey caliber player in return for Zach Lavine, but it's just not realistic for what the market is right now. The Los Angeles Lakers obviously don't want to part ways with the multiple first-round picks for Zach Lavine or even one first-round pick for Zach Lavine. And just, the overall interest just hasn't been there. The Philadelphia 76ers, like I said, that could be a team that's interested in pairing up Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and a guy like Zach Lavine, but we would likely only be getting expiring deals in return. You have to look at it that way. The James Harden deal was precedent for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different things. The first one being, maybe now we don't have to trade multiple first-round picks for an all-star. If you're a rebuilding team or a team that's really just not in it, here, we'll give you expiring deals of solid role players that are going to be off the team by next year or the year following. You are going to have a max slot available to sign one of the better free agents in all of basketball going into 2025. Summer of 2025, summer of 2024, you have the potential to land one of the biggest names. Kawhi Leonard's available. Well, Kawhi Leonard was available. Now there's a bunch of other guys available that we could potentially look at, but it's definitely not going to be what a lot of fans are talking about right now. Cade Cunningham is not the guy in this deal. Cade Cunningham is him. Don't get it twisted. There is no shot that the Chicago Bulls get Cade Cunningham for Zach Lavine straight up. It's just not happening. It's just not feasible. It's not something that's realistic. And I think that's one of the biggest issues for me when we talk about what the Bulls want to do and how they want to do it. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But that's all we really have right now. I just wanted to get on here really quickly, do a little video, talk about, what's going on and what could potentially transpire within the next couple of weeks. As of today, Zach Lavine is still out with that right ankle injury, sprained right ankle that he suffered against the Toronto Raptors just the other day. This will be his third straight game without them. They're playing tonight at 9:30 Central against the Los Angeles Lakers in LA. Obviously, Rich Paul is going to be there. LeBron James is going to be there. Everybody else who has connections with Zach Lavine will be in the building. It'll be interesting to see if Zach and Lonzo are in the building. Lonzo in his hometown. And then obviously Zach reuniting with LA and LeBron and Rich Paul, his agent. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. It really will. I think this is a great opportunity for the Chicago Bulls to make a move. Bojan and obviously Joe Harris bring great three-point shooting. What they could potentially be for a young, scrappy Chicago Bulls team, according to Stacey King, I think is definitely what we should be looking at right now in terms of where we're going moving forward. Because you obviously come to the overall consensus that if Zach Lavine is traded, DeMar DeRozan isn't too far behind. And then what does that mean for Nikola Vucevic? There's a lot of different reasons that I think we're going to have to see what happens within the next couple of days. Somebody said, bro, Bulls won't trade Lavine for salt and chips. And 100%, bro, I completely understand where everybody's coming from. And it's definitely not what we want, but you have to look at addition by subtraction. Look at what happened to Tyrese Maxey when James Harden left. Look at what happened to Kobe White when Zach Lavine got injured with his bruised foot, I believe, earlier in November, and now with the ankle injury. Sometimes guys get better and sometimes teams get better. They won 10 out of 15 games without Zach Lavine. It's crazy. They won like a 6-game winning streak, something crazy like that. Like, not to say everything was Zach Lavine's fault, but sometimes you get to see other guys continue to get better. So that's really what happened. That's really what's going to potentially happen. You look at what happened with James Harden. You look at what happened with other guys around the league. Sometimes you just take the expiring deals to open up a max slot in the max salary contract. You want a big time player. You want a big time player, and I get it. You know what I mean? Like, you want Cade Cunningham to the Bulls. You want Jaden Ivey to the Bulls, and that makes sense. As fans, that makes sense. We want a franchise player. Sometimes you just don't get that. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting for sure. It'll definitely be interesting. Again, like I said, I'm more around the realms of, expiring deals. Bojan Bogdanovic is a free agent at the end of 2025. Joe Harris is a free agent at the end of this year. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It really is. But it's interesting. And I will say this. I'll end it with this because I think it's important. To that point of the Bulls aren't going to trade him for salt and chips, I don't see them forcing anything. If, the Bulls looked a lot better in Zach's return. They didn't look bad. Zach was playing team ball, averaging 15, 17 points per game. Sure, it's not 25 points per game, all-star numbers, but we were playing great team ball. So I think, at the end of the day, that's really where you're at with that is, okay, well, if there's a deal in place to where we get a first round pick or maybe expiring deals to free up that max slot, cool. But if it's not a good deal, we're not going to do it. I'd rather just rock out with Zach. That's really what happens at the end of the day. Now, why the Pistons are even a legitimate conversation is for a simple reason. Zach Lavine does not have a no trade clause. Yeah, Zach wants to win. Zach wants to do what he wants to do in order to win a championship and be on a championship caliber team like the Lakers, like the 76ers, like the Miami Heat, like whoever. But that no one cares. We don't care. As fans, we shouldn't care. Like, you should get the best return package possible if you're the Chicago Bulls. Why do I care if Zach Lavine wants to win a championship? If I'm getting, let's say for sake of argument, if the Los Angeles Lakers are offering me 1 first-round pick and D'Angelo Russell versus the Detroit Pistons, who, let's just say for the sake of argument, are offering 3 first-round picks and Jaden Ivey, you think I'm sending Zach Lavine to the Lakers because he wants to win a championship? I'm helping him because of what he wants? I don't give a fuck what Zach Lavine wants. Whatever the best package is for the Chicago Bulls is exactly where he's going to go. And if he's upset about it, then he can demand another trade on top of that because we don't care. Like, that's real. That's just real. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be. So with that being said, man, we're going to continue being live on TikTok for a little bit. You can follow us at theshy.kid on TikTok and Instagram. If you haven't hit that follow button already, definitely does help us out a lot. We're going to be talking Bears and Cubs later tonight. Definitely talking a lot about what's going on with the Chicago Bulls moving forward. Connor Bedard, the Chicago Blackhawks, WNBA free agency in the Chicago Skies coming up. But until then, I'll check you guys out later. This is Mike Hughes from Mike on the Mic, a.k.a. The Shy Kid. Peace.
I love you.